Hello, Bullseye the Clown here, and welcome to another episode of Bullseye on Bullying. Today we're going to discuss a story that I'm about to read. The story is called The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig, and afterwards we're going to discuss some of the issues that this book brings up. Here we go. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Miss Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. That's Nathan and Sophie there beside them. Nathan has problems with what Miss Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside way too much. There he is. And you see Sophie right there? You see Sophie right there? Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space, but Brian, he doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for the kickball team. The best players get picked first. Then the best friends of the best players get picked. That's that little picture down there in that corner. Then the friends of the best friends get picked. And that's them up there. And then here's Brian. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping to play. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. Brian doesn't get to play. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends all talk about her birthday party. Oh, the rope swing over the pool, that was awesome, says JT. Yeah, and so was the water slide, says Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. Oh, I'm so glad you had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table and does what he does best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings. See them there? And space aliens locked into intergalactic battle, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. On Monday morning, Miss Carlotti introduces Justin. This is Justin right there. As you see him right over here, there he is. Justin is a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunchtime, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? asks Madison as she points to Justin's food. There you go. You see that right there? There they are. And there's Justin eating his food. And he says, "It's bulgogi." What? Bulgogi. It's a Korean barbecued beef my grandma made for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? Man, there's no way I would eat that. And the kids laugh, all of them that is, except for Brian. He says they're wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. And the piece of paper says, Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian, yum. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. There he is drawing on the sidewalk. You are Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds, before taking off. There is Brian doing his drawing. Back in class, Miss Carlotti asked the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for any special projects. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads toward Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. There's little Brian and Justin. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Miss Carlotti said that we can have 2 or 3 people in our groups. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let him work with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in this photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. And there they all are. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in a house like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. And then they begin to work on the story, crafting and working and writing. It's lunchtime again. Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. There he is going into lunch. Brian, he hears someone shout, Hey Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Would you like a cookie? Thank you. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. So did you like the story The Invisible Boy? This story could easily have been written about me because I felt like I was invisible whenever I was a kid because people never invited me to birthday parties and they never picked me for their baseball teams or the soccer teams or any teams. I was always the one left who had to go on the team just because I was the only one left. So now that the story is over, let me ask you a few questions about what we just witnessed in this book. Do you think a good suggestion would be that when it comes time for recess or it comes time for phys ed class, that the teacher picks the teams and automatically puts people on each team and then teaches the team captain how to best utilize every single player on that team? So they might say, Brian, you are good in the outfield because you can catch, so why don't you go out in the outfield and you catch while you're out in the outfield? Or maybe you're a good batter. Maybe you could be the batter for this particular team. So we saw an instance of social bullying in our book. And that's when everybody was invited to the birthday party except for Brian. Brian didn't get invited to the birthday party. And sometimes that's what people do, what's called social bullying. They don't invite you and they pretend like you don't exist. Have you ever tried to join a group game or activity and the other kids wouldn't let you? If so, how did that make you feel? Leave your comment below. And have you ever intentionally excluded other kids from joining your group or your game or activity? If so, why did you do that? Leave me a message below. In the part of the book where Madison says, I'm glad you guys all had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian because he wasn't invited. When Madison and her friends talked about her birthday party in front of Brian, do you think they were being thoughtless or were they being mean to Brian on purpose? What do you think? Leave me a message down below and let me know what you think. Was there a better way for Madison to handle the situation when she and her friends started to talk about the party in front of those kids who were not invited? And have you ever found yourself in a similar situation as Brian, where the kids all talking about the fun things that they've done in front of each other, and you weren't included or invited? If yes, how did that make you feel? And I really want to know. Leave your comment or your questions down in the comment section on this video. I would really like to hear those so that I can respond, and I will respond to every single comment that is down there. Unless it's a mean comment, then I won't respond to those. I delete those. So he says they're wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. How many examples in this story can you find that showed Brian's invisibility? pretty much the entire book, right? He was invisible the entire time. But what do you think is worse? Being laughed at or being invisible? Please leave me a comment down below. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. You remember them saying that? How many kids did it take in this story to help Brian begin to feel less invisible? Do you remember how many people made Brian feel less invisible? What specifically did Justin do to make Brian feel less invisible? Are there kids in your class, grade, or school who you see being treated as if they are invisible? And if yes, what could you do to make them feel more valued and appreciated and visible? So thank you so much for watching this edition of Bullseye on Bullying, where we talked about The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig. Until the next time, please be kind to each other, and please subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment down below on any of the questions that were addressed in this particular video. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.